French cities remain inundated with thousands of migrants who are living on the streets. In a November speech in Burkina Faso, in Ouagadougou, the capital, the French president explained why many of them must go and leave France. Quote, "I can't tell my middle classes who work, who pay taxes, that it's great. We're going to welcome everybody into the country," he said. "That's ridiculous. Who's going to pay for that? You'll just fuel racism and xenophobia. That doesn't exist, totally open frontiers. That just doesn't work." Katie Hopkins is with Rebel Media, and she joins us tonight. So, Katie, that was the president of France, the historic rival to your island kingdom. Can you imagine an English leader saying, a political figure in the UK saying something like that out loud?
No, not at all. I think Macron, hopefully, is going to come back really strong on migration. I hope he's going to up the number of asylum seekers, rejected asylum seekers that are deported. And I think the mayors, the 7 mayors that have written these letters saying that they are overwhelmed by migrants, they are looking for fast action. And they're also looking for the rest of France to share the problem. At the moment, it's very much around the periphery of France, in the departments around the edge of France. And I think what those mayors are really saying is we need everyone else to take some of the share and to bear the load. But he is talking tough on migration, and you can see why, because Merkel hasn't been tough enough on migration, and as a result, she's just had her worst polling for 70 years, which pleases me no end, because I think the woman is dead behind the eyes.
Oh, I agree completely. It just seems it's so odd to have a president of France speaking like this, far tougher on migration than the Prime Minister of the UK.
Absolutely. I think Theresa May has been nothing but a disappointment to so many of us, because she seems to be a massive appeaser. The more that we get attacked, the more we are threatened by the people that she welcomed to our country, the more we seem to pander to them. And that's craziness. To hear Macron coming back really strong is a very positive thing. And of course, there are other people now coming out strong as well. We've got Italian elections coming up on March the 4th. It looks like they will go centre-right, right-wing, anti the EU. And of course, the Eastern Europeans are rising up as well, and they're saying no more migrants. We've got Poland, Hungary, others all saying, no, we won't take your quotas, we aren't taking any more people, and we're rejecting the migrants from our country. And I think that gives us some indication of the sort of spirit of the people that are now saying, we don't want these people anymore. We've just seen a report out in Germany that says that 90% of violent crime, that's an uptick in violent crime, 90% is committed by migrants. And there's so many of us that are saying, yes, we knew this all along. We did try to tell you when we said back in 2015, stop the boats. We said that for good reason. I never understand this idea, Tucker, that just because we're doing better than another country, you just invite yourself over. You know, like as if my mother-in-law, for example, likes to come over for Sunday roast. I don't invite her all the time because I don't want her in my house. In the same way as just because people want to join our country, we don't have to accept them just because they want to come because we're doing rather better than they are. I think it's okay to refuse people, and it's okay to say no. And if you're really a migrant fleeing from a country, how is it that you decided to leave your women and your children behind? Was it really that scary that you left the girls and you ran away? These are economic migrants.
Great
and
question.
I think we're within our rights to say no.
I want to wish you good luck with your mother-in-law, Katie, and I hope she doesn't watch Fox. Great to see you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. By admitting 10,000 more refugees from war-torn regions every single year. UN official Gonzalo Vargas Llosa said in a recent piece that the UK's laws are too restrictive and complex because they only let children reunite with their parents if they're actually children aged 18 or younger. In other words, like children, like real children. He also says admitting refugees would help the countries they're leaving. He conveniently leaves out their effect on the countries to which they are coming. Katie Hopkins is a global columnist for DailyMail.com and one of our favorite guests, and she joins us tonight. So the position of the UN, Katie, is that Great Britain doesn't take enough people from other countries. Is that true in your experience?
Yes. Well, it's certainly the position of the UN that we don't take enough refugees, and certainly the position of the UN that we only allow children who are under 18, and we don't allow children over the age of 18, which I think you and I would agree, anyone sane would agree, those are actually called adults. I would also argue we give £3.5 billion to Syrian refugee camps. We give a whole bunch of money. And I would also like to point out, I don't think the UN is in a position to lecture anyone. If you Google, UNHCR scandal, the list is endless. People, rape for food, cash for food, kind of blackmail for food. They have so much scandal, so many levels of bureaucracy. They started off with a budget of $300,000 70 years ago. Their annual budget now is $7.5 billion a year. That's in 70 years they've managed to get that much money going their way. They've got 10,000 individuals in what is just another agency. My personal opinion is disband the whole thing, disband UNHCR, get rid of the 10,000 bureaucrats and give that 7.5 billion annually to the refugees. I think, as a British citizen who doesn't want to see another 10,000 people put ahead of British nationals for health and schools and hospitals, I think that would be a great way to use those resources more effectively.
But why this? I've never understood this. Why the UK and the United States and Australia? Why not, I don't know, Japan or China with the world's fastest growing economy? Why does the United Nations never put pressure on those countries to accept 10,000 or 10 million refugees? Why? Why always the UK?
We're such an easy target, I think, because they know we have a whole bunch of liberals here that stand around with placards saying, refugees welcome. I think it's one of those things they see us as an easy place to try and put people because we are a welcoming kind of nation. And people always quote, we have a vast history of helping refugees back in the ages. It's a question I always ask, which is why is it Christian countries are always supposed to host individuals from Muslim countries? If Islam's so fantastic, why not stay in an Islamic nation? But certainly we're supposed to open our doors and borders. And already, we recognise we have 200 illegal migrants crossing into the UK each week from camps in Calais. And that number is only increasing. And we also see from the pictures, all of the boys that said they were under 18, many of them were 30 years old, 40 years old. And we had to take them up their word because it would be against their human rights for us to question what
they
age
were older than I am.
Were.
No.
Yeah, well, indeed.
So really
absolutely.
quickly, our president is going to be touching down in Europe. He's going to be over there this week on his foreign trip. What kind of reception can he expect?
He's going to have a nightmare. He's a man with a huge heart. He's a man with huge emotional engagement with people. He's going to meet with Macron, who's the closest thing to automated intelligence that we have. I've seen people that are more animated with rigor mortis than Macron. He's going to Belgium, which, is the centre of bureaucrats. It is the swamp. He's going into the heart of the swamp. And he's going to meet people there to talk about NATO. All of the countries that he's going to don't spend the required 2% that he wants them to spend on NATO. And finally, he's going to end up in Sicily, which, as you will know, is the sort of halfway point for the ferry that now runs for migrants from Libya to Italy. And the other thing I want to say is that whilst he's in Sicily, all of the borders are being shut down. So the borders are being closed. So all of these liberal leaders that preach to us about having open borders, having migrants go wherever they like, having half of Africa come to the UK, whilst the G7 are meeting, all borders are being shut for their safety. Yeah. And it makes you think, I think, about the hypocrisy that we have in Europe.
Oh,
and I'm really looking forward to Trump coming and blasting a hole through all of that. And he'll also meet the Pope, who said, any man who thinks about building walls and not bridges is not Christian. And of course, the Pope's the one that sat in the Vatican City, largely surrounded by walls, which were built to keep out the marauding Muslims back in 840.
I'm glad someone remembers. So it's more offensive to the British ruling class and British authorities to be anti-Islam than it is to be anti-Britain.
Absolutely. I know the tick list of correct answers that the liberal fascists want me to answer. I know what they'll approve of. I know what they like, and that's endless gushing sympathy for migrants, economic migrants, for the Islamic faith. You saw with the Westminster terror attack here, the very first media that we had off of that was that we had to look out for our Muslim counterparts because they may be kind of under some kind of attacks following the terror terrorist attack on us, it's always that idea that we need to bow down to the culture that joins us, and we never seem to stand up for the culture they've chosen to join. And it's one of my big questions always, is if Islam is so fantastic, why do Muslims always seem to want to come to Christian countries? And it's a question that I never have got an answer to yet, Tucker.
It's a great question, and an awful lot's at stake, like 1,000 years of history. You take it seriously, and I appreciate that. Katie, thanks for joining.